Hello everyone, how you going? And welcome to the pros or cons of living in Australia versus the UK. Now obviously we've been checking out American stuff, Canadian stuff, and now we just have to kind of check out, our closest relative, and so hopefully she can just, enlighten us a little bit.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Simply Ree, and today I'm going to be telling you guys the pros and cons when it comes to living in the UK, London specifically.
Well, okay, that's certainly good to know, because I can only imagine, like with any country, being only in London and maybe, I don't even know where in Australia, she just said Australia, but only in a particular city is going to vary a little bit.
Alright, so first on our list is job opportunities. Okay. So when I do say the UK, I really only mean London because I haven't been anywhere else in the UK yet, but work opportunities in London are huge. Big businesses are all throughout London. There's lots of independent little like cafes, restaurants, things like that as well. It's very common, I think, to come across people that have their own business. So if that's something that you think that you would like to do or something that you're working towards.
Yeah, wow, that's certainly an interesting point, because it isn't the first time I've heard about job opportunities in terms of both ways, because obviously of her experience coming from Australia and then going over to London, it was like, oh my goodness, there's so many jobs here. And then we've also heard the opposite in terms of when people have come here, they're going, oh, there's just no jobs, you can't get any jobs. And I've always just thought, what are you talking about? There's jobs, you just have to look around. But I guess, like I said, it's just all a matter of perspective. And so she's just going, wow, this is actually, my entire world has been opened up now that I'm in London. I can just work here or here or here or here, anywhere I want to, because like she said, there's just so many big businesses and things.
I definitely think London is a good place to connect with people and kind of link up with those that have similar interests to you. So it is good for networking opportunities. You can network with people in Ireland, Wales, Scotland. It's all pretty easy, and especially Europe. I mean, I feel like I'm basically making this video just to convince all my friends to come over here and live with me because I miss them. On to the next one though, I have seen a lot of people on some forums comparing at the NHS here to Medicare at home. So the NHS is free to everyone if you are even on a visa like myself. If you do apply for a visa from Australia to the UK, you have to pay to be part of the NHS. You can't have a visa without it. And because it is the UK, you have to pay to be part of the NHS. You can't have a visa without it. And because it is free, it kind of takes away the hassle of going to the doctors and worrying about whether you can afford it. I definitely think it's easier to access medical care over here, as understaffed as they may be. But yeah, it's definitely a pro for the UK. Not that Medicare at home is bad, but there is just that difference of having to afford more in Australia.
Really, that's a big difference, because from my experience, Medicare has virtually always been free, and so I wonder what kind of things she's talking about in terms of which isn't free, like certain medications, or I don't even really know, or maybe it's just sort of like fully subsidized. Either way, obviously both countries are very lucky in terms of how they've set that up and how it's run, so that the vast majority of things are very, very cheap in comparison to what they might otherwise cost. But no, either way, I'm very surprised. Well, I'd like to know kind of more specific details about what exactly is going on there, because I always just thought that Medicare was virtually the same thing as anywhere else in terms of just how free it was. But anyway, obviously no, I guess.
I personally think it's great that you need to be covered by the NHS when applying for a visa. I was only here for 2 months before I ended up in hospital, so that's another story. But I think it is really good to just have something to rely on, because you'll never know when you're going to need it. Now this next one, number 3, I'm not entirely sure, because I've seen a lot of people be kind of subjective with this one, but apparently the overall total cost of living in the UK is cheaper than Australia. I kind of see how, because the UK has more competitors, so things like supermarkets, and like groceries, retail, they're all relatively cheaper than what they would be at home.
I mean, I'll also assume that even just with a bigger population, with economy of scale and all those things are generally going to be maybe a little bit cheaper overall per person. But no, I can certainly understand how maybe especially in London things are going to be quite expensive, from housing and all those kind of things to just general living and running expenses. But either way, I'm fairly sure that Australia takes the cake on like 99% of all places in the world. Like, we've only been beaten by a couple of cities, especially Sydney versus other cities as well. So of course that is only really talking about the cities, and as soon as you move out of the cities, I'm sure that both countries just drop off completely. And that'd be interesting, like what is kind of the lowest cost you could live by if you live to, I don't know, somewhere way out west and somewhere in the UK which is just super remote and no one wants to live there for whatever reason. Either way, I would just love to know what's the cheapest the country has on offer,
because they can charge less to be their competitors. But then in terms of housing, Australian housing is a lot cheaper than here. So I'm not sure how that all kind of ties together, but I do think that total cost of living in terms of groceries, retail, is probably cheaper in the UK than at home.
Especially for clothes and things like that, I've heard. You know, I don't know, I can't think of any particular companies, but let's just, H&M, let's say, I know that that's actually, I don't know if it's originated in the UK, but I know it was in the UK, and they have, for example, a very cheap but decently quality brand in comparison to what we have here. And so yeah, I can certainly understand it from that side of a living cost, it makes sense, but from a renting side, that's a little bit surprising, because everyone knows that every Australian knows that renting is not the cheapest thing in the world.
Something that I've noticed a lot since being here is that there's tons more things to do, even in big cities. Like Sydney, of course, you've got a lot of things to do, but in London, it's like next level. Every single weekend there is a market on somewhere. It doesn't matter where you are, you will find one. There's obviously loads of festivals that come around. No matter where you are,
obviously that's Camden Market.
There's obviously
where or how do you say that? Portobello Market is the only way I can think of. But honestly, knowing some of the naming schemes in the UK, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something completely different to that. But man, that is a weird looking word. It looks something magical.
Festivals that come around in the summertime, and then also there's a lot of like theatre
Harry
shows,
Styles?
Comedy shows, gigs and concerts. Which I'm 21, so I want to go and do all those things. So
I mean, I can certainly understand how that's a thing, but at the same time, I mean, maybe that's just Sydney in comparison to some other ones. Like, obviously, Melbourne, that's kind of their entire shtick, is just the fact that they're a little bit more, I don't know, towny, so to say. But either way, to be honest, I'm sure it just comes down to, well, the fact that the population's bigger, like I said before, but also the fact that they just have more people in terms of, like, the people that you would actually go and see. You know, if you actually just have to fill every day of the week, you've just got more an option. And so it's a little bit unfair to compare, but it's certainly a fair comparison.
Because obviously, like, living in London, it's a big place, so you might have to travel to get to central London to be able to see some of these things.
Did she just say London's a big place? I mean, on the whole, like, the entire of the UK is not a big place, but anyway.
At least you're not traveling like 1 hour, 2 hours to Sydney and back just for one, 5-hour show.
Exactly what I was just saying.
That is a huge pro for me, and I just love that if you don't know what to do on the weekend, you can just search the closest market to you and there will be something happening.
I mean, at the same time, markets certainly aren't for everyone. Surely if you go to every market every weekend, that would just be the most boring, dull thing. I mean, yeah, go to one, maybe two, but beyond that, come on, find something else to do.
The pro for living in London is the summers. So,
the summers?
I mean, it's kind of ironic because I'm filming this.
What?
Technically it is summer, but I wish you could see the sky right now. It is dark, it is gloomy. But overall, I think the summers here are much better than home. I find UK summers actually quite bearable. Like, you do actually want to leave the house. You can go walk around, there's tons of parks in London.
Yeah, because there's only like 20, 30 degrees.
And overall, I just think it's more bearable.
And cloudy.
You still want to actually do things with the day. And like I said before, it kind of ties into that events pro, because in summer there's going to be tons of events and it's just nice vibes, nice atmosphere, and overall I think summer is definitely better in the UK than Australia.
I mean, that's all well and good, but at the same time, I don't want to be spending the 18 degrees summer like, oh, it's a hot day, it's 24, get out of here. Give me some hot summers and some decent beaches or decent water, whatever you want to be doing, river, pool, beach, don't care, whatever it may be. Obviously, it definitely does change what you can do in terms of festivals, but either way, there's certainly still festivals in Australia. You might not be as stinking hot just standing outside in a 40-degree day all day, but either way, it's kind of part of the parcel either way. And so even though I certainly understand where she's coming from, I feel as though there was a direct argument for the exact opposite. Like, here, give me the heat, give me all of this. And especially if we expand to see the season all year round, you know, you're going, okay, the summer's a little bit cooler, but that means the winters are a little bit cooler, which makes them nearly completely unusable. Where the winters in Australia, you could still do plenty of festivals if you want. And so, I don't know, it kind of just extends the amount of time. I feel as though the UK just has to shove it all in one summer, and that's why it's so much more fun, because there are just so many more things going on, because I've only got a couple of weeks to do it, really.
Another one which I did notice pretty much as soon as I landed here, it's obvious, but there is so much history and architecture to look at. Everything is really old and interesting and isn't as new as Australia, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that it really adds something to like the atmosphere and the overall feeling of living somewhere like England. It has so much history to learn about, and overall it just makes for walking around the streets really, really interesting and kind of special when you stumble upon something that's like hundreds and hundreds of years old. And
yeah, of course, and it's the same thing with all of Europe. Like, all of Europe just has this incredible architecture. Obviously, some of it's been damaged, some of it's been, I don't even know, just crumbles over time. But either way, the entire thing is just a much older living environment than Australia. Australia, because Australia is, in terms of British colonisation, so much newer than anywhere else in the world, really.
Also tying in with that, London has so much diversity. There's so many different cultures and ethnicities. And I think especially where we're from in Australia, you're not really exposed to that.
Where are
much
you from
diversity.
then? I need to know where the hell she's from, because if she's from somewhere like Tamworth, I can understand why she's talking all the things she's talking about. But come on now, surely if you're living in Sydney, the fact that she said, "Oh, I'm living where I was living," surely that does not mean you were living in Sydney. And so I want to know, because even though she said Sydney, I feel as though it's not entirely true anymore.
People of all different backgrounds here, so I definitely overall think that that is a pro.
That could certainly be a good thing, but I just want to know
the fact that it is so easy to travel places here. At home, where I'm from, I need to have my car. There's one bus that goes to my suburb, and it's only in one direction. So I love the fact that you can live literally anywhere in this country, and it's easy to get places.
Yeah, of course, because everyone's so much more jam-packed in, and so the per capita in terms of how much they have to spend to move people around is just not existent in comparison to what Australians would be to move you, I don't know, the same amount of people, the same percentage distance across the country.
And it also makes it so you don't have to live in central London and pay thousands and thousands of dollars. You can live in zone 3, zone 4.
Oh, what was that?
Thousands of dollars. You can live in zone 3,
Zone 3, zone 4.
whatever.
I've certainly heard of that before, but come on, surely you could just you put up a map and just show people instead of just saying zone 3, zone 4.
But you can still easily travel to and from the centre of London. I was kind of worried about being biased towards Australia, but the more I talk, the more I'm like,
hardly. Don't worry about it.
I really like living here. The next one is the biggest pro ever in the world.
Come on,
and that
what's it
is,
gonna
of
be?
course, the proximity to Europe. I like
Of
traveling.
course.
My partner loves traveling. So being here in London, where we've got about 4 airports that you can go to,
I thought she was going to say 4 countries.
Cool to be able to just pop over to another whole country for a weekend. And also, like, when there's a bank holiday, a public holiday, it's so easy to travel to new places just for that weekend. Whereas at home, like, you could drive for 8 hours and still be in the same state. It's the best part.
I mean, unless you're counting the ACT, it certainly doesn't count, does it? But no, you can certainly just drive you can drive from the south of England to the north of England before you leave the New South Wales borders. And so, yeah, the entire thing is just much bigger. And I certainly have to admit that being in Europe and that proximity, there really isn't any comparison there. And so, yeah, I can absolutely agree that that would be an incredible thing to just be able to pop over. But then again, in Australia's case, you just have this massive, awesome country to explore. And I've also heard from a few people that the only reason that British people travel so much is because their country sucks so much. And so, of course, that's just all jokes and whatnot. But either way, you can certainly understand where people would have gone, oh, so you don't like to spend enough time in your own country and you just have to go to Europe to be able to enjoy time.
Okay, now moving on to the pros of living in Australia.
Okay, I certainly hadn't realised that. I thought she was actually kind of covering the pros and cons when she'd been going through each topic, but that was just all the cons, and now we're getting into the pros, it seems. Okay, now it makes more sense.
So, this is kind of an easy way out, but the first one is that winter is more bearable at home.
There we go.
Obviously,
so you got better
here,
summers
the
but worse
weather
winters.
changes every second. At home, I'd like to think that we have pretty consistent seasons. Here, like I said, today it's been raining, it's been windy, and it's been sunny, and that happens all
it can
the
happen.
time. So winter is definitely more bearable at home. You can still get things done and actually go outside. A huge pro for
Exactly as I said. So you're kind of just trading one off. You get, okay, I might like the summer more here, but at least I get a winter.
living in Australia that a lot of people talk about is that the people at home are nicer. And obviously that's a huge generalization. But here, last year when I was working as a fundraiser, I met a lot of people and everyone is always busy. Every single time I spoke to someone, obviously it was because I was fundraising, but so many people, they just don't have a second to think. It's like, I have to get that train, I have to get that meeting, I have to take this call. Like, no one ever just stops and
like I said, I would just love to know where she was living on, because even though she said Sydney, there's just been a few things where I go, really? But maybe she was Sydney, maybe she's just on the outskirts of Sydney, whatever it may be. I can certainly understand if you just kind of actually having to deal with all these people and you go, oh my goodness, none of them are ever nice to me. It certainly puts a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth.
Takes a breath, you know? I think that makes a lot of people very short-tempered and flustered and stressed all the time, and I notice that. At home, I do think it is true that people are so much more relaxed. This ties into my next pro, which is the work-life balance at home is far better than here.
Okay.
If you're working full-time in London, you are doing long days. Here, I feel like it's like 45 hours, 50 hours is full-time. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Is that okay then? I guess it's just a matter of perspective, because for me, I certainly feel as though that's a part-time job. But anyway, that's just my take on it.
Another pro that I saw a lot of people talking about is how the hot chips are so much better at home than here, and I would have to agree.
No.
They're never crunchy or deep fried enough or like soggy in the middle, and it just makes me really upset.
Oh, fair enough. You can't be having soggy hot chips.
And I have no money, I'm not really sure if this is true or not, but apparently housing is more affordable. I'm not sure if that's for renting or actually owning a house, but I'm assuming it's owning a house. The rent as well. In London, I talk about this a lot because every single month when I have to pay rent, I like cry for...
First of all, no, I'm not even going to let it finish because there are so many things, because, well, living in Sydney is going to be very expensive, and actually, no, London is ranked higher, but the UK is ranked lower, I'm fairly sure.
About 5 minutes because it's so much. Rent is so expensive here.
Yeah, of course.
At home, definitely a pro. You could probably even work part-time and still afford a decent place to rent.
Where?
Here, it's
where? You need to say where. You can't just say, oh, afford a decent place to rent. If you're living in the CBD of Sydney, no way. If you're not on $100,000, $150,000 a year, that's just barely going to even cover your rent costs. So I need to know where she's talking about. But she obviously just doesn't live in Sydney if that's the kind of thing she's talking about.
Gosh. So I definitely think housing is way more affordable at home. And
No,
again, the whole
not way.
affordable housing
Not way
cost
at
of
all.
living is...
We've certainly heard it from the other lady and other people just in general going, oh man, it's so expensive here. So I don't know what you're talking about. You certainly just don't live in the city or whatever it may be, because Sydney is just renowned as just being stupidly expensive.
Obviously for people that think that they're going to be living here long term, but you know, you never know. You might come here expecting to be here for 2 years and then love it and live the rest of your life here. Mum and Dad, don't start crying. That I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about other people. The biggest pro about...
Of course, there are so many people that go, oh my goodness, I've actually found where I've always wanted to live. Like she was saying, maybe you move over there and you go, oh my goodness, I don't care about winter whatsoever, but the summers are great, the festivals are great, all of the history just even in the UK, let alone all of Europe, and hell, you know, the US isn't even that far away anymore. So yeah, I can certainly understand how people can go, wow, I actually love it here, but at the same time, you got to have a little bit of a tether to home, surely.
Living in Australia is the landscape, the nature, the atmosphere, the vibes.
See,
I do love that London has
so contradictory.
tons of parks everywhere, which is great.
Yeah.
But in Sydney, you're literally still on a harbour. Like you're on the coast. It's so much nicer, and you can always find a lookout somewhere.
Beautiful.
A lake, a beach, bushwalking track. I don't know. Not that I really
absolutely
did that.
beautiful.
But it still obviously adds to the overall experience, and it's just much nicer to look at. It's just a chill place to live, isn't it? Like all the stereotypes are true. The next kind of ties in with the whole more personal space, less crowded thing. I find that there's way less pollution at home. In Sydney, I know it's pretty bad depending on where you are, but in London, sometimes it is truly ridiculous. You could just, any time that you're walking around, it just smells like the fumes from all the traffic, and obviously you get used to it if you're living here, but...
That's really interesting, because I can only assume that London wouldn't be the most dirty city in the world, but man, I wonder what most of that pollution is coming from, because I can only imagine that from a Sydney CBD compared to a London CBD kind of area, there's not going to be that much more cars that can even fit in a city like that, and so I wonder where all that pollution could possibly be coming from.
It's still something to consider. So in saying that, I love where I live at home. It's so chill.
Where?
We live in a coastal area, so there's always
coastal area.
Nice breeze, nice
Where is that? Where? That looks like, is that Newcastle way? But one thing is definitely for sure, that is not an inner city looking thing. And also, I've just kind of been thinking about it. She said that you have to drive multiple hours or maybe 1 or 2 hours to be able to see a show in Sydney. And so that definitely means that she's either, I don't know, well, either way, she's just not in Sydney. But anyway, what can I say? The entire video is just a lighthearted video.
The air is cleaner. Now, I don't want to get dragged for having less pros about Australia, but so many people were just talking about the climate and nature, like...
I didn't drag you at all, I swear.
That's it. And lastly, I would like to add a big pro, which is that Australia does not have Boris Johnson.
Oh,
I don't want to get into politics, but... And
Bojo,
actually, do not
we have
get me wrong,
ScoMo though.
Australian politics, huge mess, train wreck.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but I was going to kind of hint it. But yeah, we certainly, I wouldn't say we have it much better, if any better. But
at least we don't have Boris Johnson.
Oh,
So
okay.
overall, now that I've kind of discussed the pros for both, I'm not really sure where I prefer.
Ooh.
It's much different to living here than on the coast where I am from. I
Okay.
think overall I would still pick Australia, you know, I'd still call Australia home. I think
There we go. The signed, sealed, delivered fate of the UK has just been offered up. Oh, Australia has won it again.
if you're
We've done it,
into
Brad.
big
We've come
cities
out of
and you're
nowhere at the end because it certainly sounded like she had a whole lot of cons for the UK and she just loved it here so much. And then all of a sudden she just went, oh, actually, no, I do love Australia.
on that fast-paced life, then London is it. Like, London is the fastest pace you get. I wanted to say
No, I'm fairly sure that New York is a little bit faster and LA is also pretty fast in comparison to London. But, you know, I'm sure they're certainly all up there. All right,
this is what I mean when I say that London weather changes every
London
5
weather.
minutes.
Oh, come on, show us.
Ooh,
Oh, what
we
a
love-
sad, sorry sight that is. Just the perpetual grey that comes in. I mean, she certainly seemed to say it was sunny, but in winter, I can only imagine that it's just miserable. Just the constant cold drizzle and grey skies. No wonder people are a little bit sharp as well. They're just constantly miserable by the weather, people say. But hey, would you look at that? I guess that's going to be the end of the video. Obviously, she covered a whole bunch of things where I went, really? But at the same time, I can certainly understand why. It was all just in good fun. But that's only because I did not want her to fall to the dark side. And to be honest, considering the fact that she picked Australia in the end, I reckon it worked. But anyway, in saying that, I reckon I'm going to call it there. So thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to do the YouTube algorithmic things down below. Also, if this is the first video of mine that you're watching, then make sure to check out some of the other ones. And also make sure to check out the original video. I'll have it linked down below. Or hey, maybe even just want to consider subscribing so that you don't miss another one of these in the future. But all in all, have a good one and see ya.